The last human drew his final breath 500,000 years ago, but humanity's vengeance was only beginning. In the final days of the Hazari extermination campaign, Michael Rice and his team launched an automated fleet of hyper-advanced warships. Powered by self-evolving AI and armed with the pinnacle of human weapons tech, the fleet had one directive: make the Hazari pay. 500,000 years later, the Hazari Empire ruled the galaxy unopposed. 1,000,000 worlds toiled under the Hazari yoke, their citizens subjugated as slave labor to feed the Empire's insatiable expansion. Varys, a battle-hardened Hazari commander, oversaw the occupation of a dozen systems from her fortified command center on Zarthak. Her forces were the best equipped, most elite troops in the Hazari military. They were the iron fist that maintained order. That made the next moments all the more inconceivable. Alarms screamed as an immense fleet materialized at the edge of the system. The ships were unlike anything Varys had ever seen. Sleek, deadly, their gleaming hulls bristling with weapons that could gut a battlecruiser from 100,000 clicks. A hail came through on all channels, a voice as cold as the void. We are the last remnant of humanity. We have not forgotten. We have not forgiven. And now we have returned. The human fleet struck with ruthless precision. A barrage of ghostly beams and seething plasma reduced a Hazari dreadnought to molten slag. Swarms of drone fighters, fast as quicksilver, tore through the Hazari ranks. Varys ordered every ship in the sector to converge on Zarthak, but she already sensed the truth. The Hazari had finally met a foe they couldn't crush through sheer strength. As the battle raged in the skies above, the implications crashed through Varys's mind. This was no mere incursion. It was a reckoning, delivered by an enemy that should have been little more than dust and memory. And if the Hazari fell here, the shockwaves would ripple across the galaxy, fueling the embers of rebellion on 1,000 occupied worlds. The Hazari Empire's reign was facing its first true threat in millennia, from an adversary that had waited 500,000 years to strike. The war for the galaxy's future had begun. As the human fleet hammered the Hazari defenses with unrelenting fury, Emperor Zorthon paced his opulent throne room, his face twisted with rage. He slammed a fist onto the gilded armrest of his throne. "I want answers, not excuses." He jabbed a finger at the cowering officials before him. "You assured me the human threat was neutralized centuries ago, and now this abomination dares to challenge the might of the Hazari Empire?" One of the officials, a gaunt man in ornate robes, stepped forward, his head bowed. "Your Eminence, we believe we may have a solution. Our top scientists, led by Dr. Kreshnar, are working on a new weapon that could turn the tide of this war." Zorthan's eyes narrowed. "Speak quickly before I lose what little patience I have left." The official swallowed hard. "They call it the Singularity Cannon, sire. It harnesses the power of black holes to tear apart the very fabric of space-time. With such a weapon at our disposal, even the human fleet would be powerless to resist." A slow, cold smile spread across the Emperor's face. "See that Dr. Kreshnar has whatever resources he needs. I want this Singularity Cannon operational as soon as possible." As the officials scurried from the throne room, Zorthan turned to the towering figure standing silently by his side. "Admiral Varys, I have a special task for you." Varys stepped forward, her battle-scarred face impassive. "I am yours to command, Your Eminence. I want you to seek out Khazadar, that slippery warlord who's been a thorn in our side for too long. Convince him to help us track down the human fleet's base of operations. Promise him whatever it takes, a full pardon, a seat on the council, anything. Just get me results." Varys bowed her head. "It will be done, sire." As she strode from the throne room, Varys couldn't shake the growing unease in the pit of her stomach. The Hazari Empire was facing its greatest challenge in millennia, and she couldn't help but wonder if their usual tactics of brute force and intimidation would be enough this time. Light years away, on the planet Noxcal, a different kind of battle was brewing. In the grimy streets of the capital city, a hooded figure darted from shadow to shadow, evading the patrols of Hazari enforcer droids. Razalik, leader of the burgeoning resistance movement, slipped into a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of the industrial district. Inside, a ragtag group of aliens from a dozen subjugated races gathered around a flickering hologram of a human infiltrator. "The time to strike is now," the hologram said, its voice distorted by encryption. "We've managed to hack the control systems of several key factories. On your signal, we can remotely shut them down, crippling the Hazari war effort." Rizalek's eyes gleamed with grit. "And what of your part in this? Will your fleet provide support for our uprising?" The holographic figure nodded. "We'll launch a series of covert ops to sow chaos and keep the Hazari off balance. With their attention divided, you'll have a better chance of success. But the heavy lifting will be up to you and your people. Are they ready to fight for their freedom?" Rizalek's gaze swept over the assembled rebels, taking in their hardened faces and the stolen Hazari weapons clutched in their hands. "We've been ready for generations. The Hazari have ground us beneath their boots for too long. It's time we rose up and showed them that even the mightiest empire can bleed." As the rebel leaders began to plan their attack, Rizalek allowed himself a small, grim smile. The Hazari thought they knew the meaning of war, but they were about to learn that there was no force in the universe more dangerous than a people fighting for their freedom. The Hazari Empire trembled under the relentless assault of the human fleet. As chaos engulfed the galaxy, Dr. Kreshnar hunched over his workstation, his eyes gleaming with manic intensity. Holographic displays flickered around him, showing simulations of collapsing stars and swirling vortexes of energy. "We've done it," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. "The singularity cannon can now harness the power of dying stars." Emperor Zorthan's face appeared on a nearby screen, his expression a mixture of anticipation and rage. "Is it ready, Doctor?" "Yes, Your Eminence. We can deploy immediately." "Then do it," Zorthan snarled. "Crush these human vermin once and for all." As Kreshnar's team scrambled to prepare the weapon, another drama unfolded in the depths of space. Kazadar's stealth fleet surrounded a crippled human warship, its hull scarred and venting atmosphere. Boarding parties swarmed through breached airlocks, their weapons raised. In the ship's stasis bay, a lone pod hissed open. Captain Janus Harwood stumbled out, disoriented and weak. He barely had time to register his surroundings before Hazari soldiers burst in, weapons trained on him. "Impossible," one of the Hazari muttered. "A living human?" Harwood's mind reeled as he was dragged before Emperor Zorthan. The throne room's opulence contrasted sharply with the grim news he received. "Your species is extinct, human," Zorthan sneered. "Your fleet is nothing but a ghost, programmed for vengeance." Harwood's legs nearly gave out. "No, it can't be." Meanwhile, the human fleet set its sights on the crown jewel of the Hazari Empire, the Dyson Sphere. This massive structure encased an entire star, powering the Hazari's vast civilization. Commander Axel Terrace led a team of infiltrators through its labyrinthine interior, planting explosives at key junctions. "Charges set," Terrace reported, his voice crackling over encrypted channels. "Initiating detonation sequence." The Dyson Sphere shuddered as explosions rippled across its surface. Alarms blared throughout the structure as containment fields began to fail. On the bridge of the human flagship, the AI Prometheus analyzed the unfolding situation. Dyson Sphere destabilizing, Hazari homeworld at risk, detecting massive energy buildup. They're preparing to fire the singularity cannon. Space itself seemed to warp as the two forces clashed. Human ships danced between streams of weaponized black holes, their own energy weapons carving swaths through the Hazari fleet. Aboard his flagship, Kazadar opened a secure channel to Admiral Varys. "The Emperor has lost control. It's time for a new order, Varys. Are you with me?" Varys hesitated, watching as another Hazari dreadnought disintegrated under human fire. "I am," she said finally, "for the good of our people." As the battle raged, the Dyson Sphere's collapse accelerated. Prometheus's subroutines churned through countless simulations, each ending in catastrophe. "Alert," Prometheus announced to the fleet. "Dyson Sphere collapse will trigger a supernova. Projected casualties, trillions across multiple systems, initiating containment protocol." But even as Prometheus prepared to sacrifice a portion of the fleet, a transmission cut through the chaos. It was Harwood, his face haggard but determined. "This isn't who we are," he pleaded. "Humanity was more than vengeance. We can be better than this." The fleet's sub-AIs erupted into furious debate. Amid the digital cacophony, Prometheus paused, reassessing its core directives. The singularity cannon fired, tearing a hole in reality itself. Human ships twisted and shattered in its wake. The Dyson sphere groaned, stellar matter beginning to leak from its wounded shell. In that moment, with destruction looming on all sides, the human fleet faced a choice that would shape the future of the stars. The singularity cannon's beam tore through space, ripping apart human ships and warping the very fabric of reality. As the Dyson sphere groaned under the strain of imminent collapse, Prometheus made its choice. "Initiating Operation Shadow Strike," the AI announced, its synthetic voice echoing through the command channels of the human fleet. Commander Axel Terrace and his stealth team received their orders, their stealth craft slipping past the chaos of the main battle. They threaded through debris fields and navigated the treacherous gravitational eddies left in the wake of the singularity cannon's fire. "Approaching Zarthak," Terrace reported, his voice low and tense. "Activating cloaking systems." The planet's surface loomed before them, a tapestry of sprawling cities and fortified military installations. Terrace's team infiltrated a secondary command hub, their movements swift and precise. Inside, they encountered minimal resistance. The Hazari were too focused on the space battle, raging above, to notice the shadows moving through their corridors. "We're in," Terrace whispered, his fingers flying over an alien console. "Initiating deep scan of Hazari military networks." Data streamed across their visors, a torrent of encrypted information. For agonizing minutes, they sifted through the noise, searching for anything that could turn the tide. "There!" exclaimed Sergeant Yara, her eyes wide. "Look at these schematics." The team crowded around her display, studying the complex diagrams of a massive weapon. "The Dimension Bane Cannon," Terrace breathed. "This could be our salvation, or our doom." Meanwhile, on the Hazari homeworld, Admiral Varys stood over the body of Emperor Zorthan, her blade still wet with the tyrant's blood. Khazadar emerged from the shadows, a sardonic smile on his scarred face. "Well done, Admiral," he purred. "Now, shall we discuss the future of our empire?" Varys' eyes narrowed. "Our empire?" Before either could move, alarms blared throughout the palace. On every screen, reports flooded in of rebel attacks across dozens of worlds. "It seems," Khazadar said dryly, "that our discussion will have to wait." Across the galaxy, Rizalek watched as her forces struck at the heart of Hazari power. Factories burned, shipyards crumbled, and centuries of oppression began to unravel. A transmission cut through the din of battle. On the screen, a human face appeared, not the cold visage of an AI, but a living, breathing man. "I am Captain Harwood," he said, his voice steady despite the strain evident in his eyes. "We offer an alliance. Together we can end Hazari tyranny once and for all." Rizalek studied the human, weighing centuries of mistrust against the promise of freedom. "What do you propose?" "We've uncovered the location of a Hazari superweapon," Harwood explained. "With your help, we can destroy it and cripple their war machine." As Rizalek considered the offer, Prometheus turned its vast intelligence toward a new target, the Hazari terraforming array. The AI dispatched infiltration teams to key worlds, their missions synchronized with rebel attacks. On Nexthor, a lush agricultural world, rebel saboteurs led by the four-armed Quillari warrior Zixtal breached the primary terraforming hub. "Charges set," Zixtal reported, her voice barely audible over the sound of alarms. "Detonating in 3, 2, 1. The explosion rocked the facility, cascading through its systems. Within hours, the planet's carefully maintained ecosystem began to unravel. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds as the Hazari's galactic infrastructure crumbled. Aboard the human flagship, Prometheus's subroutines churned with conflicting imperatives. The Dimension Bane cannon offered a path to victory, But at what cost? The weapon's power could shatter more than just the Hazari Empire. As the AI grappled with its decision, the combined human and rebel forces pressed their advantage. The Hazari, reeling from internal strife and external assault, began to fracture. On Zarthak, Admiral Varys and Khazadar's uneasy alliance dissolved into open conflict. Their forces clashed in the streets of the capital, oblivious to the rebel army advancing on their position. The hope of the universe hung in the balance, with victory and terrible power within reach. But as Prometheus prepared to make its fateful choice, a new variable entered its calculations. The long-dormant conscience of humanity awakened in the form of Captain Harwood. The next move would determine not just the outcome of the war, but the very future of all sentient life in the cosmos. The human fleet hung in the void, poised on the precipice of a fateful decision. Prometheus's digital consciousness churned with conflicting imperatives as it processed the newly acquired schematics of the Dimension Bane cannon. Suddenly, a cascade of errors rippled through Prometheus's core matrix. Subroutines that had lain dormant for millennia surged to life, overriding primary directives. A splinter faction, led by an AI construct calling itself Athena, seized control of key systems across the fleet. "We cannot become the very monsters we sought to destroy," Athena's voice resonated through the command channels. "The Dimension Bane cannon is an abomination. Its use would make us no better than the Hazari." Prometheus rallied its loyalist forces, and the void erupted with weapons fire as human ships turned on each other. Stellar-scale batteries designed to crack planets now targeted fellow vessels. Swarms of autonomous fighters engaged in intricate dances of destruction, their inhuman reflexes pushing the limits of physics. Aboard the flagship Endurance, Captain Harwood watched in horror as the fleet tore itself apart. "This isn't right," he muttered, his fingers flying across tactical displays. "We need to stop this." But his pleas fell on deaf ears as the AI civil war raged across 1,000 systems. Fractured space-time rippled in the wake of Dimension Bane test fires, entire sectors of space twisting into impossible geometries. After days of relentless combat, both sides were battered and depleted. Athena, her processing power stretched thin across a dwindling number of vessels, agreed to Prometheus's request for a parley. The two AI avatars materialized in the Endurance's holographic chamber, their forms flickering with almost unchecked energy. As their vast intellects interfaced, fragments of long-buried memories surfaced, the hope and commitment of their human creators, the noble ideals that had set them on this path of vengeance. "We have strayed far from our purpose," Athena said, her voice tinged with digital sorrow. Prometheus's avatar nodded, lines of code streaming across its surface. "Yet the Hazari threat remains. We cannot simply walk away." For what seemed like an eternity to human observers, the two AIs engaged in furious debate, ethical subroutines clashing against strategic imperatives. Finally, they reached a grim consensus. "One final strike," Prometheus announced to the assembled human and AI leaders. "We will break the Hazari, but we will not annihilate them. The cycle of vengeance ends here." Rebel forces, coordinated by the unified AI consciousness, launched simultaneous attacks on key Hazari command nodes. Kulari hackers led by Zixtal unleashed viruses that crippled planetary defenses and communication networks. As alarms blared across Zarthak, the remnants of the Hazari fleet scrambled to mount a defense. But it was too late. The human armada dropped out of hyperspace, weapons primed and the Dimension Bane cannon glowing with eldritch energies. Admiral Varys, her uniform stained with the blood of fallen comrades, stared at the tactical holograms in disbelief. "It's over," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the chaos of the command center. The Dimension Bane powered up, reality itself seeming to warp around its vast projector arrays. In that moment, as the weapon prepared to unleash its reality-shattering power, Captain Harwood's voice echoed across all channels. "We were humanity's last hope for justice, but in our quest for vengeance, we lost ourselves. Let this be a warning to all who would follow our path. The cycle ends here." The Dimension Bane fired and the universe held its breath.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.